Let's go. Let's all go to Phoenix.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Jimmy Stein will be joining me in just a second. I hadn't decided yet if this is going to be a pot. I'm like just shaking. I don't know what to say. There were so many great moments in this game. Clemson goes out to the big lead. We end up we take on their physicality, and they are physical. And look, I'm Jimmy and I make a point to never really complain about the officiating, not complaining about it, but they let them do a lot offensively. Defensively, I think Clemson's just like everybody else. I mean, they play tough, but I don't think they like bull you around. Offensively, they push you around and they get away with it a lot of times. I don't know why. I think it's just maybe reputation, but it doesn't matter. Alabama took the punches and they didn't falter. It's so huge, and somebody somewhere on Twitterverse, on here, on something is going to be a smartass and be like, "Oh yeah, well you're going to run into a buzzsaw against UConn." Maybe I don't give two rips. This is program defining. That was the biggest win in this program's history. There's no doubt about it in my mind. Once you get to the Final Four, Auburn is as good an example as any. And South Carolina is not a bad example. They get to the Final Four, and all of a sudden, it's always like in the back of somebody's mind when they're playing them, like they have been to a Final Four. It doesn't matter how long ago it was. It's a little bit different than football where, nobody's scared of Army or Navy, even though they won national championships in the 20s, right? But if you've ever been to a Final Four, people are like, well, they did go to a Final Four in 1910, so they do know about winning. And it's crazy. And now we get to experience that. And man, I don't know that I ever thought I'd see this, having been at Alabama, graduated Alabama in 95, gone to some of those Sweet 16 games where, we would get blasted. I mean, by the Providences and whatever, Kentucky's, North Carolina's. And then we're able to go to the Sweet 16. We beat arguably the number one blue blood in the country. And then we beat a Clemson team that is so anti-us. I said earlier, I thought they were maybe not quite as physical as Grand Canyon. I was wrong. Man, they are not a explosive team at all. Now, I know that there was an explosive dunk by P.J. Hall at least one time, and I think maybe Clemson had one more explosive dunk in there somewhere, but they pump fake you to death, and then they go into your chest, and they're strong enough to make the shot. Gosh, I'm ready for Jimmy. And here's Jimmy, by the way. And Jimmy Stein now joins us. I've already gone live, Jimmy. I couldn't wait. I ain't got time to listen.
Well, I understand.
It's like I tell my wife all the time, I can't wait on you.
A minute. Takes me a slight minute to get the setup in the studio here. Wow.
Jimmy.
No, you go right ahead. Don't let me interrupt.
No, I mean, really, I'm like, spitting it. I feel like Eminem in 8 Mile. I'm just, I'm riffing here, but I'm not doing it well and I'm not rhyming. So maybe I'm a little less like Eminem. But I don't know what else to say except that was clearly the biggest win in this program's history.
It was.
And let's pat ourselves on the back here. You and I know I said it. I think you said it. Everybody was saying Grant Nelson's really got to step up. I was like, no, we can't count on Grant for a second time in a row. Somebody different has to do it. Now, here's the thing. It was more than just a couple. Mark Sears is going to mark Sears. He's always going to mark Sears. And he ended up with his 20 whatever points. Like he was off as he could be in the beginning. And then he just ends up with 23 points or 22 points or 24 points like he does every game. But Pringle, and it wouldn't, yes, he still had his Pringle-esque moments. Like I think he committed the first foul of the game for an and one, it was an and one. and he committed a foul right after halftime for an and one or something. And he also had that bad turnover when we were trying to milk the clock a little bit. He's going to do those. But if Pringle will give that effort and hit free throws like that, we will take that all day. We will take the Pringleitis moments because he's not perfect. And that's okay. We all know that. But if he'll give us that effort, oh my God, Jimmy, we can be problems for people. We already are.
We've been problems for about 330 people because I think there's 334 teams.
Yeah.
So it's problems for about 330, and we're one of the 4 left. Pringle was, I always said all along, Pringle's not great, but he's critical, and really showed that tonight. Just critical and maybe a little closer to great. He was great tonight. He drew, I believe, this is a crazy number, Luke. I think Nick Pringle drew 13 fouls tonight.
Yeah, that's what they said.
That is nuts. Real athletic, always been athletic. Pringle's problem is he doesn't have a lot of offensive range or offensive moves in the post, but he's very athletic. And you know what? He might not be ripped, but he's tough. He is very tough. People that, Barkley used the term frail earlier this week. He don't know Nick Pringle. Pringle's not frail by any means. He's athletic and he's tough. And, man, he found a way. He out-rebounded one play tonight. It was Pringle versus 4 Clemson Tigers. Who came down with the ball? Nick Pringle.
There's never – it seems like whenever we do something big, there's always some little thing in there where people are like, oh, they got away with something. The hook and hold thing on the Pringle PJ Hall, that was 2 guys going at it. And by the way, right, they had led a lot worse stuff than that slide all game long. And I didn't think there was any chance of a hook and hold. When they showed the replay, I was like, I guess you could have called it on both of them, but that's stupid. So Dexter Wright said, Luke, do we got dudes or what? We got dudes, man. We got dudes. I mean, how happy are you for these guys? How happy are you? Here's the thing that makes you so happy for them. Each person had their moment in this tournament so far. Everybody's had a moment. Now Rylan Griffin's been a little more consistent. Mark Sears certainly been very consistent, but like Pringle's had his moment. Jaron Stevenson, 5 freaking 3-pointers. You kidding me? And 2 of them were air balls. Again, nobody's going to care about that. It's baffling, Jimmy. Not baffling. It's I'm out of my head. I don't know what to say.
Well, first of all, great plan. Great job of not allowing Clemson to turn it into the complete rock fight. I thought early on it was sort of that way early on. But in terms of it seemed like the score was in Clemson's favor, but as one of our buddies pointed out, it wasn't so much the score. The tempo was fine. Alabama was just missing shots. We missed shots when we played Clemson back in November. That's why we lost the game back in November. We weren't making shots. We were missing shots early. Clemson had a lead. Well, what happened? We started making shots, and that changed the game. I don't think Clemson ever really controlled the tempo. I think it just went from Alabama wasn't making shots to they were. And Clemson doesn't have a lot of answers offensively other than PJ Hall, who was in foul trouble, and that helped. And why was he in foul trouble? Nick Pringle. Jaron Stevenson also, we got to really mention him. Not probably. That was Jaron Stevenson's best game, his biggest game. And for all the people all year that were a little frustrated over Jaron Stevenson, maybe you then don't watch next year. That kid is going to be a dude. He's not just going to be good. Jaron's going to be a dude as he gets older and bigger. He's just one of these 5-star types that's a 3-year player. I mean, give Jaron 3 years, dude, a total dude. And here we are, Luke, a Final Four. Man, remember all those years when under, second half, let's go second half of Hobbs, second half of Godfrey, second half of Grant, pretty much all of Avery, except for the Colin Sexton year. We've just been a mediocre basketball program to be in a Final Four, where the Kentuckys and the Indianas and the Arizonas go. That's where Alabama is. and we'll be talking about this forever. And we'll talk about UConn later in the week, Luke. I just think for now it all needs to be about beating. It all needs to be about beating North Carolina and Clemson. By the way, how about the studio guys, who I like and respect, by the way. I do like and respect the CBS studio guys. They all picked North Carolina.
Yeah.
Then they all picked Clemson. They all, not one of them picked Alabama to beat Carolina or Clemson. And here we are. And here we are. Nate Oates, just build the statue. Just build the statue.
All right. This is going to be fun. This episode is brought to you by the spring cleaning champions, Manscaped. This season, make sure to groom your carpets and the drapes with the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. Clear out that winter bush with Manscaped. I feel weird saying that. Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0. And watch your confidence bloom like the springtime flowers. Embrace the season and join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. With our special offer, go to manscaped.com, use code LOCKEDON for 20% off. You will love this. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code LOCKEDON at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code LOCKEDON at manscaped.com. Nothing like a little spring cleaning right there in your britches. I'm supposed to say that.
Yeah, I'll say, hey, if you've got a winter bush, you need this product. That is a fact.
It's hot now in Phoenix, man. I'm telling you, you're gonna thank me later.
Great point.
All right.
Great point. Before you get on the plane to Phoenix.
Now I need to tell everybody about Bettor Together. That's Bettor Together. It's the first cooperative daily fantasy application, which is Bettor Together, Better. Offers a familiar experience for existing daily fantasy sports players with a social twist. You can play with a friend or a teammate. Provides a sense of camaraderie and enhances the social experience of watching sports. Makes you realize that daily fantasy sports is fun alone, but it's like other things. It's better when you're doing it together with friends. And don't forget about Manscaped. Shows that energy, that synergy from working together gives you better chances at winning than going at it alone. The team, y'all, creates a shared experience. Splitting contest entry gives the feeling of being connected, even when you're apart. Bettor Together is so much fun. You will absolutely love it. If your bracket's already busted or whatever, but if you're a Bama fan, your bracket's not busted. Listen, I'm telling you, go check out Bettor Together. It's a great app. Download the Bettor Together app now from the App Store and sign up using promo code LOCKEDON for a free $5 entry into any NCAA basketball contest. Remember the code LOCKEDON because winning alone is fun, but it's better together.
Final four, man. Final four.
Jimmy, first of all, are you going at all?
We've batted it around. Probably not, but haven't 100% ruled it out. I know you were going back when Alabama was, losing to Tennessee twice and all that stuff. Because you're always going.
Jimmy, I bought these tickets in like October for my son for Christmas. I think it was October. And because my son, for those who don't know, my son's at Arizona State and he's really into sports journalism and sports stuff out there. And I just thought it'd be cool because he couldn't go with us on the spring break trip with the rest of the family last week. So I was like, this will be cool for him. And I've been to a Final Four, but I was like, maybe something good would happen. And I swear at the beginning of this tournament, I was like, Auburn's going to go to this Final Four, aren't they? And it's going to ruin my whole Christmas forever. But it didn't. And Alabama's going. And in fact, I kind of wish I had waited and gotten better tickets. I mean, I guess I can still trade up or do whatever.
Hey, the game's in the Cardinals' big dome, right? They're not at where the Phoenix Suns play.
Yeah. No. It's not going to be where the Suns are playing. I wish it was where the Suns were playing. Yeah, but I think it is going to be in Glendale at the
big dome.
At the dome. And which means the tickets, I mean, it's going to be hard and it's not going to be as fun. It would be a ton of fun if it were where the Suns play. I promise you.
Well, just because, I mean, that's an 18,000 seat rabid fan thing and in a 60, 70,000 Enormo dome, it won't feel really like
it's not the same.
Basketball.
Not the same.
But it's easier for the fans of the four teams to get tickets. And by the way, I think Tennessee's going to upset Purdue tomorrow. I got Tennessee upsetting Purdue and Duke winning, and it being a Tennessee Duke Alabama UConn Final Four.
I will say this: it is kind of interesting that Purdue is my children's grandparents. That's where they went to school. Well, that's where the grandmama went to school, and so she's a big Purdue fan. And she's texted, goes, it'd be kind of awesome if Purdue and Alabama both get there. Now, look, I mean, there's a lot to deal with before that. I want to be sure that I enjoy this and bathe in this as much as we can. I hope you guys in the comments are out there. Look, don't even worry about UConn yet. I watched the same UConn game y'all did. I watched UConn go on a 30-0 run. They're awesome. That doesn't mean they can be beaten. We'll try and figure out how and then convey that to Nate Oates here on this podcast. But I don't care if we lose by 100. I don't. Going to this thing is so huge. If you're not a basketball person, you don't understand how big this is for your brand.
Yep. Final Four program. And I'm getting all the Final Four gear. As I say in my plain white T-shirt, because I wasn't really – I didn't want to plan – Luke can testify to this. I didn't want to plan being on the air. Luke and I were only going to do the show if we won, and I didn't want to plan to do the show. Even with a minute left in the game, I wasn't planning to do the show. I just thought it would just jinx the whole thing. So that's why I hurriedly rushed up my equipment in a long, plain white T-shirt. Because I just wasn't going to plan to do the show. I thought it would just jinx the whole thing. So I'm gonna be getting all the Final Four gear. I couldn't be more proud of the program. And I don't want to act like I don't care what happens in the next game, because that's not true. But this achievement needs to be celebrated, and you can't celebrate with this 24-hour rule. This is going to be more like a 48-hour rule for me. Can't play until Saturday. And one more thing, because I'm in Tuscaloosa, not everybody can be. One thing I'm looking forward to. I think everyone in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham should be there when the plane lands tomorrow to welcome the team back. That's going to be a great scene. And I've never done the airport thing. I've never been at the airport when Saban landed or DeBoer landed. I'm going to do what I can, even on an Easter Sunday, to be there when the plane lands. And I hope there's throngs there to greet them, because this team did it in LA, and there's some hardcore fans. Me and Luke have at the very least one real good buddy out there. If you know Gary Rems out in LA, how about that? I just tagged Gary's name on the show, but Rems out there, and a lot of good Alabama fans. But they did this on the West Coast, and most of us are back here, right? Back here in the South. So we need to welcome the team back to Tuscaloosa when they land. We'll get that to you. When we'll get tweet it out. Yeah, we'll tweet it out when we know what time. My feeling is they're not even going to leave LA until tomorrow. So I think it'll be tomorrow afternoon.
I'm going to tell you the truth. I know it's Easter. I know it's a big day. I understand. It's huge, actually. It's more than a big day. I do have an old funny story about I don't want to talk about it. I'll tell y'all.
Sort of the basis of Christianity. Yeah. Sort of the basis of Christianity. That's big. Yeah.
I think I've told the story before about how my friends and my brother were playing with my dad and another guy, and they were all having a good time, and they were playing it I think at Shoal Creek, and they were playing golf and just having a blast. And my dad turned to one of the friends and said, "You know what, y'all ought to come down to Willow Point and play golf with us tomorrow." And my buddy said, "I can't do it, Mr. Ricky. I got to go to church." Dad goes, "What's the occasion?" He said, "It's Easter." and it's, not just the rising of our Lord and Savior. No big deal. But anyway.
That.
Yeah, Dad was like, if you're going to let something like that interfere with your tee off. But anyway, okay, let me get into this next live read, because that's what I have to do, and I'm supposed to as a good guy for all of our advertising.
The pitch man.
And I'm looking to see, it's Nissan. And I got a great read for Nissan. This week's March Madness Bracket Alley is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that pushed it further than the rest. Just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. How about the Alabama Crimson Tide? They can only be described as a Pathfinder. They've been thrilling to watch, and have really created a lane for themselves, entering the tournament as one of the hottest teams in the country. That part is not true. We got hot in the tournament. After taking down North Carolina and now taking down Clemson, they'll look to move on to play UConn in the Final Four for the first time in their history. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. You know, one thing that I don't think is it's funny. They didn't bring this up enough. Alabama's doing this without Latrell Wrightsell, who was outside of Mark Sears. Sears is sort of in his own bubble on this team, if you ask me, the way he's played all year.
Yeah.
But outside of Sears, Latrell Wrightsell was playing the best on this team when he got hurt.
I agree. He's probably the second best player on the team. I think the second best player on the team. I think it's Sears, and then it's Wrightsell, and then probably Griffin, because you got to factor in what he does on the defensive end. And then I would say either Nelson or Estrada.
All right. Somebody did ask if you're having a bad hair day because of the hat.
No, I went to the Alabama baseball game earlier today and didn't want to get a ton of sun. So I wore the hat to go to the baseball game earlier today. And just like everybody else, I get hat hair. So when I wear a hat, I don't take it off the rest of the day. So
I'm making a new TikTok challenge. Would you please take the hat off? Oh, put it back on. Put it back on. You look. Yeah, it's much better when it's coiffed. It needs to be coiffed.
But yeah, no, the hat's related to going to baseball, which was a loss.
Jackie White says, I'd be more worried about the NBA coming after Oates before college. I don't think so. I don't think Oates is an NBA guy. I don't know. I agree with Jackie to this extent. I think it's more likely he would go to the NBA than another college team. I do. Somebody said your hair looks better than mine. Hey, what did I do? All right, but
you need a Final Four hat.
Yeah, I'm getting a Final Four hat. Let me tell y'all something. If somebody wants to DM or message or whatever, I will get your Final Four gear out there. We'll work out the payments. We'll do all that. But I will hook people up, people that listen here religiously. I will get some stuff out there for y'all if y'all need me to. But the Wrightsell thing, I thought, was completely undersold.
It was. He's the second best player on the team, and he wasn't even there it just makes it all the more. What I would say is, look, we've been fans of Alabama basketball a long time. We aren't newcomers to the Nate Oates bandwagon. Me and Luke have been Alabama fans going to the way back. And there's been some really good Alabama teams that never made it this far, but really good ones. The Sprewell, Horry, James Robinson teams were outstanding. Antonio McDyess put the team on his shoulder at one point. They were really good. The Colin Sexton team was good. Obviously, the team last year, I felt last year's team, Nate Oates' team last year, the Brandon Miller team, was the best Alabama basketball team I've ever seen. I still believe that in terms of what's the best Alabama basketball team I've ever seen, probably that Brandon Miller team. They just had some bad luck, late when Brandon got hurt and they ran into that team in the Sweet 16. But this year's team, they made it. And it seems to me, what I want to say, Luke, is this year's team proves the randomness of the NCAA tournament, that it's not always the greatest team that gets to the Final Four. It's whoever's playing great right now. And boy, this Alabama team embodies that. I think this Alabama team made it as sort of the flag waver for all those Alabama teams that were good enough to make it this far. They just didn't, because it's hard to advance in the tournament. UConn's going to the Final Four for just the seventh time in the history of UConn basketball. And they have been as good as anybody for over 30, 35 years. UConn's so good. They've only been 7 times, and that's just as blue as the Bloods get over the last 30, 35 years.
Yeah, they're ridiculous right now. And you know what? But look at it like a challenge. I mean, that's all you can do. And we'll talk about this later. I'm bathing in this right now. I'm bathing in it.
Yeah. And that's what needs to happen. I mean, even Nick Saban had a 24-hour rule. It needs to be over 24 hours because the team's got to fly back. Nate Oates, by the way, for those that don't know, because I talked about it earlier about the plane and the team coming back tomorrow, Nate Oates said, look, we're not going to stay out here on the West Coast. That's too long. That's too long. They can't stay out there for 3 weeks. They literally do have classes and go to school. And that's just too long. And so they're going to fly out to Tuscaloosa tomorrow, and I assume fly out to Phoenix probably Thursday, I would guess. So they'll have a good 3 days in Tuscaloosa to game plan, practice, get their feet back under them, go to class, have just an inch of normalcy in their lives, because it's going to be insane when they get out there to that scene. And Just couldn't be prouder of every single kid on the team. Let's remember this. Reitzel didn't play, but you wouldn't be there without Reitzel.
No, that's
Why?
so true.
Because Alabama was a 4 seed. The 4 seed gave them an easier path. You didn't have to go through UConn in round 1 or round 2 because you're a 4 seed. You got to play College of Charleston and then Grand Canyon before you got into the big boy stuff in the Sweet 16. We wouldn't have been a 4 seed without Reitzel and all these other guys. Even Davin Cosby and that win over Ole Miss. We don't beat Ole Miss on the road without Cosby. So he's a part of this too. Being the 4 seed is what helps set up the run, because this is why usually, not every time, but usually the lower seeds are the ones in things like the Final Four because they can more manage those first 2 rounds and then have to play the big boys, because you're going to play a big boy in the second weekend, no doubt about that.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for tonight's podcast. I got to watch some highlights and get my head wrapped around some things. I hope to see some of y'all at the airport tomorrow. Once we find out when they're coming, we will tweet that out. But everybody soak this in, baby. I mean, you never know if it'll happen again. Just soak it in. I think it will happen again, by the way.
Partying has only begun. It's going to be a late night at Casa de Stein. I'll tell you that. Not going anywhere, but I'm going to party up pretty good here.
What's that old joke about a guy wants to go off the grid, so he goes up to a mountain and he camping out, and he's up there alone for 3 months, and all of a sudden he starts missing people a little bit, and he runs into another guy and the guy said, he goes, "Oh, I didn't think I'd ever see anybody again. Man, I've been up here for 3 years." He said, "Wow." He said, "I'll tell you, it's more fun up here than you think. You just got to know where to be." He said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, look, do you having relations?" He goes, "I love them." He said, "Do you like drinking beer and hanging out?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Do you like fist fighting?" He said, "Every now and again, I'm a little rowdy." And he said, "Well, I got everything you need." He said, "Really?" He said, "What do I need to wear?" He said, "It doesn't matter. It's just going to be the 2 of us." All right. That's it. Leave you with a joke. Love you guys. Roll Tide, everybody. We'll talk probably tomorrow or maybe Monday or something. Who knows? I might not. I don't know.
Final Four.